Welcome to this weekly Muse. So this week's show is inspired from some beautiful people in a group I am part of, Planets, Houses, and Signs. So if you would like a musing show dedicated or inspired by none other than you, just let me know what amuses you. So my musings are on the elemental highway, the portal into the divine, the magical gateway into the imagination, or the pathway of power. And that one always amuses me, I must say. So astrology is a language, and if you understand this language, the sky speaks to you. So thanks for musing with me today. And if you're watching the replay or are new to my musing show, make sure to like my page, subscribe, and more importantly, enjoy the show. And check out my other musings on my page or YouTube, Tonya D. Or just show up weekly if you feel inspired. Please share. Go ahead and comment. Those thoughts need to be released, right? So if you like someone else's comment, go ahead and give them some love too. The galaxy. What I like to refer to as the galactic frontier, and for many reasons in all actuality. However, today I'm going to focus on the astrological atmosphere of it. And this show is inspired by Danielle Napolio Cox, Rochelle Sanchez, and Rianna Bateman, who is curious about their sun signs. So the galaxy is a playground to me, and in many ways it highlights the essential part of your inner being. However, we need to bring that inner being out into the outer world to play. And your sun sign is the heart of your chart. It is the expression of what you identify with, and it is what comes natural to you and with integrity. The signs are in seasons, and each season has a phase, a birth, and a peak and a decline, say. But along with the signs are the houses, and the houses are like who is coming over for dinner and how those guests are going to behave or react. And each house has a different flavor, character, depending on who is coming over for dinner. Now, I'm just going to get to the basics of this, and really it can get a bit crazy when you start to dive in. And I really don't want to confuse you, because that is not my goal. Then we have the time of birth and the place of birth, which creates your rising sign or the sign that is on the rise, how you are seen, your personality. And I sense this is a being you are ultimately here to be. And that's just truly my opinion. So if it doesn't resonate with you, then so be it. Totally okay with that. You also have the planets. Planets have a sign that they rule, or they are the ruling planet of. And the natal chart is a map of the types of experiences that we need to have in order to feel our life purpose. We are by no means required to follow the map, however, and the map is not their actual terrain. We can choose an infinite number of ways to experience the energies in our charts. We also have the free will that creates the ability to grow and to evolve and to become more skilled in how we work with the energies of our charts and in our lives. It's just a starting point or a template of sorts. It's just a map. Now, astrology is the study of cycles of the planets. Just know that the same force that moves the planets actually moves us. We are part of a magical universe, and we all follow the same cycles and patterns. It's difficult to discover the patterns in our daily lives directly, but by observing the regular cycles of the planets, then you can understand the nature of the cycles and learn how we are also part of those universal cycles that I call the galactic frontier. As above, so below. As within, so without. As the universe, so the soul. So following the law of alchemy that states that all energies are inside of us, if we suppress or deny them, however, they will manifest outside of us, which means that we can choose how we learn our life lessons, or at least some of the time, at least. For example, if we choose to take personal responsibility for our actions and make a conscious as well as spiritual effort to let go of our fears, then we have the ability to experience harmony and balance in our lives, both inside and out. Any lesson that we don't approach on a conscious level, however, can and sometimes does manifest in our lives as external forces that are far more difficult to ignore. And the more we try to ignore or repress those energies, the larger the disturbance or disruptions become. And one little snippet to remember about the law of alchemy and astrology is just because we have a certain amount of influence as to where we experience certain life lessons, we can never avoid them entirely, even as much as we would like to. Some things we just need to experience both inside and out, ultimately accepting that we experience lessons and challenges in certain areas of our lives because on some level we chose to experience that lesson in that particular area. Eventually, you have to pick a corner, stand your ground, and accept the life lesson in whatever form that it might come. Also, a side note that it also operates on the law of beginnings. And the beginning point of thing contains the potential that will be fulfilled during the cycle and beyond, beginnings of your life, working with and through this galactic map of the positions of the planets, and also a map of each individual's life path. On a heavier note, because I like the plane of existence, there are different places of existence, and they get filtered through from the higher levels down to the physical levels, where motivation becomes assumption, where it becomes belief, and then becomes your attitude, which then becomes your behavior, which is a hardened belief. And every body has its own series of filters which are influenced by our past experiences, our karma or past life lessons, and our dharma, which is the present and future life lessons. And I look at it as we are all spiritual blueprints for individuals on this mental or etheric spiritual plane, as a tool for self-awareness and healing, connecting the dots between the spiritual blueprint and the current reality. So let's remember that there are no bad planets, and there is no such thing as a bad chart either. We decide how to work with and experience these energies of our map. And if we're not happy with the choices that we've made up to this point in our lives, we have the ability and the authority to make different choices from that point on. The planets are the most important part of astrology, relating to the planets, describing how they act and interact, and modifies the expression. Without the planets, nothing happens. The signs exist to describe where the planets are located. When someone asks your sign, they're asking what sign your sun, a planet, is in. Now, where are your planets, right? For that matter, the sun isn't a planet, it's actually a star. And the moon isn't a planet either, it's a satellite orbiting the Earth, which is a planet, but seems to be absent from astrology charts, kind of in a way. The planets are like actors in a play. The sign that a planet is in represents the role the planet plays, its costume, its motivation. The houses are the setting, the backdrop for your action. It's even like that dinner plate and what is or who is coming over for dinner. You can have an actor, an actress just being themselves and not playing a role, but the costumes, the scenery, and the plot can't stand on its own without the actors. Same with the dinner, without a plate, and what is spread out on the plate. So there are inner planets and outer planets, the visible and the invisible. There's fast-moving and slow-moving. The inner planets move relatively quickly and can be seen by the naked eye, at least, when the skies or the heavens are clearer. They include the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And the outer planets move rather slow and have cycles that are a longer duration. Uranus takes 84 years for a return, and people are actually experiencing this more and more. Where Neptune takes 165, Pluto 248 years to orbit around the Sun. And Chiron acts as a bridge between these inner and outer planets. So I'm just going to hit on the planets in this musing show and continue with the signs and the houses as we move forward on this journey. So we also have day planets, Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn, or yang energy, and yin or nighttime planets or energies, Venus, Mars, and the Moon, and a neutral planet, Mercury. So the sun is the circle of your spirit with no beginning or end. It is what you identify with. It's the dot in the center is the spark of life. And we are part of an entire spirit, but also a spark of that spirit. It's the point where the infinite meets the finite. The sun in our charts shows where and how we want to be a star. So the way we want to be known, the things that we want to express and to be recognized for, in order to stay healthy and happy, we must make sure that we are feeding our sun. Anything that we truly enjoy doing feeds our sun. Those activities recharge us on a very tangible level. Symbols of a hero, father, or the experience of the father, men in general, kings, rulers in particular, leaders, teachers, and gods. The moon, the crescent of the soul, it's the soul receives and holds the spirit, being the second most popular. And how I do truly love the essence of the moon. It's our emotional tranquility, our sense of belonging. It's the urge to feel comforted and nurturing, a way of being comforted. It's where we feel and express our experience of emotions, memory, past habits, and conditioning. So the sun gives motivation and the moon receives it. And I could actually do an entire show just about the moon. The relationship between the sun and the moon is extremely important, actually. If it's harmonious, it makes it a lot easier for us to express our needs and to integrate with others. The moon rules all containers, which include our physical bodies. That is nothing more than a container for our spirit. It shows how comfortable we are in our physical bodies. It's the caretaker of our body, showing how we want to be nurtured and cared for. Even though the moon represents all women, the moon's energy resonates most strongly with motherhood, without a question. The moon in a chart represents our experience of and our attitude towards motherhood. And real quick about retrogrades. Retrograde planets are taught to have more of an internal expression, while direct planets are outwardly expressed. So if you have retrograde planets in your chart when you were born, you'll often feel the personal issues related to that planet. And those planets are often the focus of much needed attention. With that, it brings me to Mercury, the crescent of the souls and the matter through Mercury, meaning the receptivity to higher energies that come into wholeness or being and becoming integrated into the person, then manifests on the physical plane. Mercury is a messenger. It's a connector. Logical and reasoning capabilities. It's left brain and logical processes. Communication, transportation, movement, dexterity, writing, thought, transportation, movement, the language. It makes connections between different concepts. It bridges gaps and explores duality. Mercury needs to connect and learn. It's the symbol of keys. Children, think of your siblings if you have them. All vehicles, all forms of transformation, all forms and instruments of communication, cell phones, computers, etc. So Mercury receives input from the sun and the moon, our conscious and unconscious selves, and it integrates these different perspectives into a unified understanding, striving to understand all sides of a situation or issue. Reveling in the paradox of duality, also known as the trickster or the court gesture, Mercury in a chart shows our motivation to communicate, along with our preferred method of communication. Venus, the circle of spirit over the cross of matter or spirit, that's the symbol, that resides over matter. It's love, attraction, beauty, balance, harmony. The forces of attraction and adhesion of that force, like attracting and holding to what you like. Venus needs to relate and connect. It's how our relationships function, issues both on an interpersonal and a spiritual plane, our desire and need to find balance and unity, what we value in Taurus, and how we relate to it in Libra. Symbols of women, beauty, art, music, mirrors, love, relationships, even money. Venus shows what we value, what we enjoy, and the ways we experience all forms of pleasure, relating to physical pleasures as well as the less tangible ones. All forms of beauty. But most of all, how we relate to the things we value. Venus shows us both how we express love and affection, but also how we want to receive it from others. Venus assists us to connect with the rest of the universe. Mars. So the original symbol of Mars was actually the reverse symbol of Venus. The crossover matter over the circle of spirit of matter presides over spirit. It's our ability to act based on our desires, the ability to remain who we are in the face of pressure to change, to maintain our true nature against threats. How we go after what we want, how we defend ourselves from threats. It's fight or flight instincts. It's to act and expend energy in a focused manner. Mars is the Roman god of war, where Venus is the Roman god of beauty and love, ruling the forces of attractions, where Mars is our aggressive nature, representing how we go about getting the things we want, how we assert ourselves, our independence, how we defend ourselves when we're under attack. Mars complements Venus because both planets have to do with the mechanics of desire and attraction. One is the light that beckons, Venus. The other is the light that commands, Mars. Jupiter, the crescent of the soul moving to the cross of matter. That's the symbol. The soul entering and working through matter. It's generous, optimistic, enthusiastic, freedom-loving Jupiter. It's our desire for growth, freedom, faith, and spirituality. It's an expansion of our consciousness. Humor and philosophy, long-distance travel, how we grow and expand our understanding of the world, how we experience grace or gratitude and faith. Jupiter urges us to contribute to a larger order, to connect with something greater than ourselves. The teachers, travelers, it includes all forms of abundance and prosperity, as well as our spiritual and philosophical pursuits. Where Mercury rules the lower mind, Jupiter rules the higher mind. And Jupiter is yes. It's the yes sign. So to everything, it's about breaking out and exploring new territory. It's faith. And we step into faith. All our fears of separation and lack, they disappear. It's where we experience an endless flow of happiness, joy, and abundance. It's where we grow and expand and realize we are a part of creation. Saturn. Ooh, everybody's always afraid of Saturn. So it's the cross of matter rising through the crest of the soul. Its form and structure coming out of the soul. Restricted and limiting structured, and it's tangible. Its laws, structures, responsibility, and even authority figures. It makes things tangible. Physical manifestations with ideas and concepts. It sets up boundaries and structures. Our experience with authority. It's both inside and out, our perception of the rules of society and the world, how we respond and react to those rules. The urge to make things tangible and structured, to manifest in the physical realm, to limit and protect. It's the need to be self-reliant, self-disciplined, responsible, authority figures, older men, strict teachers. Saturn gets one of the worst reputations in astrology. It's saddled with all the things that are miserable in our lives. Saturn's actually a valuable teacher. However, it's never fun. The essence of Saturn is limitation or fear, structure and restrictions, and it feels like the heaviest of karma. Saturn's a complement to Jupiter because Jupiter represents the urge to jump and Saturn provides the foundation that we need to push against in order to be able to jump in the first place. So as Saturn contracts, Jupiter expands. Honestly, we don't become adults really until we have experienced our first Saturn return. Not a fun time at all. At least for me, I can honestly tell you, is actually probably the worst experience of my life. I hope I don't ever have to do that one again on repeat. Now, Chiron, I just threw in here, and it's actually an asteroid, but in a chart, it's our wounded healer. And it appears as a key or an O with a K for object qual. And it takes 51 and a half years to orbit a chart. And it's sometimes seen as when you've healed your wound. Similar to Mercury, it carries the light energy of the outer planets, and it's where we encounter and have the opportunity to accept our spirituality in our charts. And this often comes through the wound or the weakest part of your chart. And through our efforts to heal the wound, we are then able to transcend this wound and experience a true spiritual connection. It triggers initiation by carrying and translating the light, energy, and lessons of the planets. the core wound carried into this lifetime. It's the area of life where we have our greatest pain, our greatest fear. It's the urge to heal, to transcend the bounds of the physical or the Saturn-based reality and connect with the truth of the universe, creating a need to carry the light, allowing the light and the energy of the other planets or the outer planets to enter the physical body and begin the process of spiritual and physical transformation. It can create a chronic or severe health crisis, which is usually accompanied by the activation of Kundalini energy. It's symbolic of healers, astrologers, clairvoyants, and others using divination kind of skills, whether it be ecologists, crystal users, people involved in hospice, transitioning from one plane to another, spiritual counselors, gurus, guides, people who use their hands as focal points for their work, such as hairdressers, healers, palmists, even chiropractors. So Chiron is the bridge between the outer and the inner planets, and it can assist us in making the transition from the known to the unknown. There's actually a great story about Chiron. It's named after the centaur, who was a renowned healer and a teacher in Greek mythology. Chiron was accidentally wounded in some fashion by Hercules' poisoned arrow. And because Chiron was immortal, he couldn't die. But he also couldn't heal his wound, and he suffered in agony as a result. Where Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind, he was still being punished by Zeus for the actions, and he would continue to be punished until God willingly faced up being punished by Zeus, his actions, and he would continue to be punished until God willingly he faced up to his morality, to his freedom, to free himself. Where Chiron agreed to take Prometheus's place and Zeus was forced to free Prometheus, Zeus was then moved to end Chiron's suffering, and he transformed him into the constellation of Sagittarius. So basically, Chiron is the wounded healer, and in our charts shows us where our core wound, the wound that we believe is unhealable. In the myth, Chiron's transformed by his wound and ultimately transcends the wound as he ascends to the heavens. In the same way, Chiron in our charts shows how we must learn to work through our fears and our pain, and in doing so, we then become transformed by the power of our spirituality. In practice, Chiron is their outer planets, with Mercury is to our inner planets. So the timing of our initiation and carrying forward our own light. So where we find Chiron in our charts is where we will have the opportunity to experience our true spirituality, to discover our unique healing gifts. It takes courage because in order to heal our wounds, we have to explore it and attempt to heal it. Then we experience it, and we allow ourselves to be purified and transformed by the experience. By exploring it, we move beyond the realm of Saturn and connect with the higher truths that are the realm of the outer planets. Isn't that totally exciting? Right? Now, Uranus is actually one of my favorites. I have Uranus on my rise along with Pluto, but Uranus looks like Venus upside down but with wings. And the planet of the sudden and the unexpected, moving into Taurus at the moment. It takes 84 years to do this complete orbit. It represents by the disrupted and the unexpected. It's both accidents and miracles. The process of a spiritual awakening, the level beyond cause and effect, revolutions, disasters, things you don't see coming. Expressed through sudden and unexpected, unconventional and frequently creative inspiration. The experience that forces us to reevaluate our beliefs and foundations in our lives. It's when and how the walls come tumbling down, whether we're freed from prison or exposed or threatened as a result. So if the desire to change and disrupt structure without regard for individual experiences or even emotions, it needs to exert an egoless and unpredictable force. It's like an accident or something that threats bodily injury, symbolized by inventors, innovators, revolutionaries, agents of change, scientists, and those who strive to change and break open our concept of reality. Saturn. We are currently living in a Saturn-ruled world, plagued by Saturn's rules. The outer planets exist so that we can see beyond the illusion of Saturn, reminding us that the universe is eternal and that as a part of that universe, we too are eternal. How we successfully work with the lessons and the energies of the outer planets is directly related to how well we have mastered Saturn's lessons and energies. So Uranus is the first of the outer planets, and its sole purpose is to disrupt Saturn's structures. So if Saturn is the cosmic egg, the physical universe that we can see, hear, feel, touch, then Uranus is the crack in that cosmic egg. It's the first and often traumatic realization that there is far more to the universe than we believe. The energy of Uranus is a flash of lightning with often devastating repercussions, unexpected, instantaneous, fundamentally disruptive. Uranus is equally responsible for accidents and miracles, and often the only difference is perception, really, or a perspective. So, when Uranus strikes, for a moment we are given a flash of insight, a glimpse of a bigger truth that shatters our old perceptions and our limitations. And just as fast as it appears, it goes away, and we're left waiting for the dust to actually settle. How we experience Uranus depends on how we cling to those illusions of Saturn. So if you have learned to master Saturn's energy and to hold lightly to its rules and structures, then when Saturn comes along and shakes things up, it can be an energizing and refreshing experience. That's why Uranus is associated frequently with freedom and liberation. But with the same idea that if we are clinging to the idea and the structures that no longer serve us, if we bought into the illusion of Saturn, then when Uranus comes along, it can feel like our world is coming to an end. Uranus is often seen as unforeseen disasters. So I say embrace Uranus. It's a sudden, unexpected chance of freedom. There's no hiding from this. Otherwise, it turns into a frightening and threatening experience oftentimes. Uranus also operates on the level of the collective unconscious, symbolizing the new and the innovative changes that await us. When Uranus has a close relationship between one of your personal planets, you naturally tap into new ideas, and in part you become responsible for bringing it into the world. However, the first thing that a new and innovative idea meets, of course, as it moves forward towards this manifestation, is Saturn. And this usually translates into resistance in society, or at least for those that don't have a close connection to the energy of Uranus and the new idea. Often seen as a rebellious streak, you need to follow your own path, not conforming to the current standards of society. Eventually, it becomes an accepted part of society, and the resistance fades. It then becomes part of our consciousness. Look how the internet is becoming a model for online classes. I have Uranus conjunct Pluto on my rising sign, and I sometimes come across as an abrupt and lightning change or a flash. Neptune. You really need to love Neptune, the crescent of the soul descending to the cross of matter, having qualities that are receptive and glamorous, deceptive, unfocused, and changing, representing that truth really is an illusion, the ultimate creative force, the ultimate potential for creation and creativity in the universe. How Neptune expresses is by dissolving all boundaries and structures, reveals the truth that anything is possible, often experienced as fantasy and escapism, or even as delusions. It's our ability to fantasize and dream, to try to connect and even comprehend the infinite potential of our vast universe, with an urge to dissolve all structures and reveal this ultimate truth. A need to merge with one. In relation to health, it can be allergies or infections, drugs, alcohol, poisons, antibodies. It's the ductless glands known as the endocrine system and the pineal gland, symbolizing artists, dancers, musicians, even martyrs and victims, photographers, filmmakers, clothing, costume design, makeup artists, social workers, psychologists, nurses, and unfortunately, even addicts. So, after Uranus has opened us up to understanding that our Saturn-based reality is not the end of the road, that there's something beyond it, Neptune comes along and shows us just what that something is. Everything. Saturn's the illusion that what we perceive as reality is true. Neptune, on the other hand, is the truth that everything we know, everything we perceive to be real, is nothing more than an illusion. The ultimate creative force, the unlimited and unimaginable possibilities of the universe. Neptune not only tells us that all these realities exist, but more importantly, that they all exist simultaneously. So this concept's actually hard for human beings to grasp. It's because we need our boundaries and our structures. And we rely on our illusions of Saturn because they assist us in defining ourselves and maintaining a sense of individuality. Neptune as an energy completely denies all of this as it dissolves all boundaries and structures, showing us where our walls are the thinnest, where we have the weakest link or hold on what we like to consider our reality. So the vibration of Neptune is actually very high, and very few of us are able to actually experience it for any length of time without losing touch with our physical bodies. Yes, I know I'm getting a little bit out there. However, we all experience different aspects of Neptune in the form of glamour, illusion, fantasy, and escapism. People who don't work well with Neptune often become dependent on either drugs or alcohol, seeking a way out of the difficult or harsh illusions of Saturn. That's not the true path of Neptune. A more constructive form of Neptune can result in talent of music, dance, photography, film, along with spirituality and the pursuits in different religions as well. Once again, how you handle Neptune's energy depends on the mastery with Saturn's energy. Uranus is the first to test Saturn's hold over us, but Uranus is quick and sudden and very much disruptive. And we can at least cope with it, at the very least. Neptune is far more subtle and disorientating, much harder to ignore. Neptune dissolves everything that it contacts. We lose all sense of ourselves as individuals and begin to literally tap into the cosmic elevated group of consciousness. So if you're not addicted to Saturn, this type of experience can be entirely mystical and transforming. If you are, however, then the influence can make you feel as if you're falling apart and even falling out of control. Being associated with both the mystical and the spiritual experiences along with the psychic abilities, where Neptune is in our chart is where we are the most in tune with higher realms. It's the line between visionary and schizophrenic. It's a very thin veil. In order to access and integrate Neptune's energy in our lives, we must make sure that we are firmly grounded in the physical. Neptune's not meant to represent an escape route. However, a lot of people experience it as such, right? But on a social level, Neptune represents the collective dream. It's the desires and the hopes of that society as a whole value and work on an unconscious level to bring that into reality. So if you have Neptune closely aspecting a personal planet, you can naturally tap into the energy, being able to channel it constructively and frequently drawn to arts and through personal creative expression, shaping this collective dream, creating form, and bringing it to the level of conscious awareness. So I have Neptune conjunct my moon. Oi, oi, oi. That's kind of crazy, right? Neptune, I love it. Okay. How you doing? Are y'all hanging in there? This is really long, I know, but are we having fun yet? Go ahead and comment over there. So Pluto. Pluto is the crescent of the soul connecting the circle of spirit and the cross of matter. Pluto represents the death and the rebirth. It's the ultimate destructive force of the universe, expressing where we fear lack of control and where we try to exercise that control. It's transformation and change. It's destruction and the burning away of unnecessary aspects of our lives. It's our power and our control issues, urging us to change and evolve, to fulfill our cosmic or soul purpose, the need to let go or to let something die, to work to quicken the birth of the new. In our health, it can be life-threatening illnesses, symbolized by the phoenix, the powerful and destructive forces, the dictators, death, rebirth, psychologists, and even psychotherapists. Pluto represents the process of death and rebirth, the ultimate threat of the ego, because Pluto literally obliterates the ego. Where Uranus shakes it up, Neptune denies it, Pluto's the final death of it. So most of us still grapple with our relationship to our ego, and we often find it difficult to let go of it. We tend to experience a great deal of fear and even apprehension around this planet in general. It really is an unstoppable force, and we can't do anything to avoid it. Out of fear, we instinctively try to exercise control in order to protect ourselves from this energy. Pluto has no fundamental association with control or power. Because of our fears, control issues are almost always present when Pluto is involved. So being the single most destructive force in the universe, the force of unconditional love, what a strange statement, right? So how is unconditional love a destructive force? Most of us can agree that love is a very or even extremely powerful force, where love conquers all. True love, unconditional love, is so powerful that it destroys everything in its path that isn't real. The purity, the energy of unconditional love is so intense that no illusion can stand with it, right? What we have to remember here is that when we are incarnated on Earth, we learn to put a great deal of faith in our illusions. The illusion that we're separate individuals and not connected to each other and to everything in the universe. The illusion that we're not all powerful, eternal, spiritual beings. So Neptune might make the walls transparent so that we can see that our beliefs are not nearly as real as we'd like them to think. But Pluto is where the walls come tumbling down. You know, that John Mellencamp song? However, Pluto does not always start by destroying our perceptions of reality. It does show us the areas of our lives where we will have to learn to surrender to control, let go of our need to cling to our illusions, and allow ourselves to be completely transformed. So if you have personal planets in close contact to Pluto, you'll naturally tap into this energy. You'll become agents for change and transformation, because Pluto most certainly represents raw power, and people who carry this Plutonian energy are drawn to arenas where they'll be in positions to influence others. A lot of politicians have Pluto strongly placed in their chart, but there's a danger with Pluto surrendering to the demands of the ego and attempting to use this Plutonian energy for personal gain. This always leads to the destruction of the individual, and Pluto energy will still fulfill its original purpose. So the only way to work with Pluto's energy is actually to surrender to it, learning that the areas of our lives that we feel the most need to control are the areas that we need or we must release entirely. Trusting that when we experience Pluto's energy, we'll not lose anything real. That everything Pluto is tearing down has ultimately served its purpose and it's no longer of use to us. By surrendering, we actually free up vast amounts of research or energy that we can use to build new structures that will actually support us and help us through the next phase of our journey. So on a side note, Pluto is currently transitioning Capricorn. And Capricorn is politicians, governments, banks, corporations, big business. Pluto entered Capricorn in 2008, and it won't leave until 2024. Interestingly enough, the banking industry and mortgages had a death and a rebirth, right? The big collapse. So we're experiencing this in the government right now. So just remember, what you resist persists. And in the end, Pluto will make it better by fulfilling its purpose. And Pluto hasn't been in Capricorn since we actually became a nation. How crazy is that? Okay, that was a very long show. Just know that I'll be doing the signs in the next show. I thank you for showing up. And I'm going to check out your comments too. And have a most amusing kind of day. Thanks for showing up. Thanks for joining me. Comment, share.